Batman fights his sidekicks on a semi-regular basis, and though it's usually a draw or they just decide to stop fighting, on a few occasions these fights have actually gone further, and Batman has actually killed them outright. And we're going to go over every time that Batman has killed one of his sidekicks. Anniversary edition of Under the Red Hood. Now this film is a multi-path movie where you choose where the story goes. And if you decide for Jason Todd to survive the explosion and for Batman to die instead, well, Jason goes on to become the Red Hood and executes most of Batman's rogues gallery. And eventually, Batman returns with Talia al Ghul. It turns out Talia stole his body and put him in the Lazarus pit. Unfortunately, it's not a perfect process, and so he didn't come back with a fully functioning mind. He's more like Talia's slave than anything else, just doing whatever he tells her to do, while continuously muttering the words zur and R over and over again, which is actually a reference to a type of mental conditioning he created himself in the past, and it's kind of a long story so I'm not going to get into it, but it's also a reference to Batman the Brave and the Bold, and in fact the outfit that he's wearing is the same as the Batman from the planet Zur and R. This is an episode of Batman the Brave and the Bold, where Batman goes to another planet and gets Superman's powers, and meets that world's Batman, who was of course the Zur-En-Arrh Batman. But anyway, Talia orders Batman to attack Jason, and he does as he's told. They attack each other, and Jason manages to stab him in the heart. But Batman is still Batman, and so he has a suicide bomb with him, which he sets off, blowing them both up and killing his adopted son. Arkham VR. Now this game is set in the Arkham universe, and it's actually timed between Arkham City and Arkham Knight, and it features the most immersive Batcave in video games. Now in this game, Batman is investigating the murder of Nightwing, who was beaten to death in an alley by an unknown assailant. Now after some investigating and interrogating the Penguin, Batman discovers that he is going insane thanks to the Joker blood poison in his system. This was of course what he was infected with in the Arkham City video game. And to be more accurate, this blood isn't poisoning him, it's actually mutating his mind and his body, slowly turning him into the Joker. And it's revealed that he had an episode where the Joker persona took over his body and then beat Nightwing to death in the alley. Which explains how the murderer had the necessary skill to beat Nightwing in a fistfight, and why Nightwing wasn't expecting an attack and had his guard down. But it doesn't end there. As Batman was investigating with Robin, and he has come down to the sewer with him where the Joker Batman has laid a trap, and so Tim Drake ends up locked in a cage and then is mauled and drowned to death by Killer Croc. Though since Batman set all this up, he is of course still responsible for killing Tim Drake. Now you're probably wondering, how can they both be dead when they both appear in the Arkham Knight video game? And that is because all of this is revealed to be just a dream. It's a bit of a cop-out in my opinion, but this game is not real, but rather just Batman's worst fears about becoming the Joker being played out in a sort of fugue-scape/dream in his mind. But since they're still pretty visually impressive deaths, and so I thought they were worth a mention. Deceased. In this comic book story, Darkseid has captured Cyborg and uses him to create the anti-life equation virus. Now, the virus puts its host into a zombie-like state, but they are not zombies, they just have a virus and are still very much alive. But the virus takes over their mind and makes them spread the anti-life virus to others in order to infect the entire universe and then basically kill all of them. The problem is that Darkseid hadn't actually meant to do this, and so the virus infects Darkseid and sends him into a raging monster. Desaad is immune to illness, so he isn't infected, and boom tubes Cyborg to Earth to get rid of him, whilst Darkseid jumps into Apocalypse's core and blows up the planet with his Omega Beam effect. Now the virus is organic, but it's also digital, just like Cyborg is. So when he returns to Earth and connects to the internet, the virus spreads through it, and since everyone is always on the internet, about 600 million people become infected in a matter of minutes, including Dick Grayson and Tim Drake, both of whom are trying to infect Alfred. So Batman has to step in and stop them, and the only way to do that is to kill them. Now the death actually happens off panel, but we know they are both killed by Batman or Batman and Alfred working together. Either way, Batman still kills them. Though unfortunately, Batman gets infected with the virus in the process, and when he succumbs to its effects, Alfred shoots him in the head, leaving the three of their bodies in the Batcave while he leaves to deal with the other infected. And there is also a front cover of an infected Batgirl attacking Batman with the other two. But this doesn't actually happen in the story, as Batgirl is killed by Poison Ivy in a different fight. So this is likely just some artistic license from the artist who drew the cover. And it is quite a pretty cover, to be fair. Red Rain. The Red Rain trilogy sees Batman fight Dracula and win, though in the process he becomes a vampire himself, as it was the only way to defeat Dracula. And for a while, Vampire Batman is a hero, returning as Gotham needs him to help keep the citizens of Gotham safe. However, over time, his vampire side corrupts him, until eventually he turns full-on evil and feeds on the innocence of Gotham City indiscriminately, even killing the family of one Dick Grayson. And then Grayson vows vengeance and spends his life hunting vampires in order to track down Batman, until he finds him and intends to stake him, but Batman unfortunately gets the upper hand and drinks Dick Grayson's lifeblood. But Batman isn't finished there, and he brings Grayson back to life as a vampire and as Batman's Robin. Now, whether he dies and is brought back from the dead, or is just brought to the brink of death is not clear, but it certainly looks like Vampire Batman killed him first, and then turns him into an unholy, undead creature of the night. The Dark Knight strikes again. The Dark Knight Returns is one of the greatest and most famous Batman comics ever made, and it truly deserves the respect fans have for it. But sadly, the success of the comic led to 2 sequel stories being released that, in my humble opinion, were unnecessary and just not as good as the original. But in the second story, The Dark Knight Strikes Again, this version of Batman has previously kicked Dick Grayson out because he thought he wasn't a worthy partner. Now, Dick went a little crazy after this and had his DNA experimented on to make him stronger, which gave him both healing powers and shape-shifting powers. And he chooses to use this power to become the new Joker and terrorize Batman. Now, this story should have actually been really interesting because there's actually a pretty solid plot, but sadly it wasn't. And during the fight of the original dynamic duo, Batman chops off Grayson's head, which doesn't actually kill him as he somehow catches it and puts it back on his body and is healed. After all, he has a healing factor that would make even Deadpool jealous, even if it is a little silly. But then Batman drops him into a pool of molten lava that is hidden under the Batcave, and I very much doubt that he could heal his way out of that. And since he's never seen again, Batman has definitely killed yet another Robin. Gotham. Now, in one of the Gotham stories, Bruce Wayne is mind-controlled by the bad guys, and the only way he can break free of this mind control is to kill Alfred. And Alfred is aware of this, and amazingly agrees to go along with the plan, and actually gives him permission to kill him. And so Bruce Wayne ends up stabbing him through the heart with a sword, which is of course a fatal injury. Now, he doesn't technically die, or if he does die, it's only for a few seconds, as Bruce Wayne is able to get hold of some Lazarus Pit water and pour it on the wound, healing him and bringing him back to life, or at least healing him, as like I say, we don't actually know how long or if he even was dead. Now, because we don't know for sure, it's hard to include this on this list, but I think it definitely deserves a mention, as Alfred is very much one of his sidekicks. The Batman Who Laughs. Everyone's favourite evil Batman was of course born when the Batman from another universe had no choice but to kill the Joker, who was going even more impossibly insane with his deadly escapades. But unfortunately, when he killed the Joker, he unwittingly released a special Joker toxin that was stored in his bones, and the toxin warped Batman's mind, and essentially just turned him into the Joker. A Joker with all the training, skill, and tactical ability of Batman, which is everyone's worst nightmare in the DC universe. And sadly, this toxin works utterly and completely. And so Batman lures his sidekicks to the Batcave. He explains what has happened, and as they begin to make plans to help him, he pulls out a couple of assault rifles and shoots them all when their guard is down. He then goes on to kill Alfred, and indeed the entire DC universe that he is in. Then he travels to alternate universes and does the same. So this Batman does also kill a lot of other alternate universe Bat family members. But to be fair, these aren't technically his sidekicks, and I couldn't possibly explain who he's killed anyway, because there's just so many. But all I can say for sure is, he definitely kills a lot of them. And Batman also attempts to kill his son, Damian Wayne, in the Justice League Dark Apocalypse War film. both by sending troops to kill him and then directly in a sword fight. Fortunately, he is unable to do it, and in fact trying to kill him is what actually breaks him free of his mind control. And ironically, a few seconds later, Damian Wayne then sacrifices his own life in order to save Batman. And even though Batman didn't kill him, I still thought it deserved a mention because of all the times he's mind controlled and attacks the Robins, this is probably the closest he ever comes to actually killing them. And that is every time that Batman has killed his sidekicks. It's more than you'd expect, but to be fair, the main DC continuity version of Batman has never directly killed one of his sidekicks. At least not yet. Now personally, my favourite one is actually the Arkham VR deaths, purely because it just looks amazing. And although the game is short, it's still pretty fun to play. Though I have to say that the deceased death is pretty good as well. And it's actually a great story and a very well written comic. So I guess my favourite is between the two of them. But which one of these is your favourite? And have you ever seen another time that Batman has killed one of his sidekicks that was not on this list? Feel free to let us know in the comments. And I'd just like to quickly remind everyone that we have some merchandise available on our store, and to say thanks to all of you who have donated to the Needle Mouse Productions page on Patreon. And as always, thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment.